People think police work is all action. It's not. Most nights it's paperwork, cigarette butts in alleyways and waiting. I've been on the force 9 years, Burke County Sheriff's Office. Night shift mostly. I like the quiet. You get to know how a neighborhood breathes when everyone's asleep. But there was this one call in November, 2023. Morganton. I think about it more than I should. It was around 12:30 a.m. when dispatch radioed in a welfare check. Female, late 20s, hadn't shown up for her overnight shift at Mission Hospital. Nurse. Good record. Co-worker was worried. There was just one detail that stood out. She'd sent a text about an hour earlier. I opened the wrong door. No follow-up, no location, that was it. So we drove out. Me and Kyle Menz, rookie, maybe 6 months in. Sharp, eager, still had clean boots. Her name was Mara Collins. Address led us to Ashwood Apartments, Building C. When we pulled in, the place was off. No lights in the windows, no porch bulbs, just rows of dark rectangles. Felt like the place forgot how to live. We parked and walked up to 3A, her unit. Kyle sniffed the air. Smells like candles or, I don't know, potpourri, he said. But it wasn't that. I noticed wax trails near the edge of the next door. Unit 3B. I knocked. No answer. Waited. Knocked again. Still nothing. Then Kyle leaned in. You hear that? No, I said. Exactly. I called it in, then said, let's check it. He hesitated. You think she went in the wrong apartment? I think we're not standing out here all night. We breached the door. Standard protocol. Shoulder to the frame, latch popped. Inside was cold. No heat, no lights, just candles. Hundreds of tea lights, lined up on shelves, on the stove, on the bathroom sink, flickering like little eyes. The smell, lavender, wax, and something metallic, hit hard. That's when we saw her. She was standing in the hallway, bare, shaking, covered in red, arms, legs, chest. Her eyes didn't track us. Lips were moving, but no sound, just mouthing something over and over. Kyle froze. He wasn't ready for this kind of scene. He whispered, Jesus, is that paint? No, I said. It's not. She was in shock, maybe hypothermic. I stepped forward, slow, palms open. Mara, my name's Officer Cortez. We're here to help you. No response. Just that faint motion, her mouth moving like she was repeating something silently to herself. I took off my jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. She didn't flinch, didn't even blink, just stared through me. Kyle backed into the living room, his flashlight beam bouncing off writing on the walls. Danny, you might want to see this. Messages, scratched, smeared, not just one wall, every wall. Don't look at her face. She is here. Third key opened it. Bathroom mirror was cracked. There was a line across it that just said, Orpheus failed. There were no lights, no power, but the candles cast long, strange shadows, like the room was bigger than it was. EMS arrived about 10 minutes after. I stayed with Mara until they got there. Her skin was ice cold. Her breathing was slow but steady. As they lifted her onto the stretcher, she finally spoke. Barely. I didn't mean to go in, I opened the wrong door. Then nothing else. She passed out. Back at the station, we ran a report. Her official unit was 3A, but we found her in 3B. Thing is, 3B had been condemned since 2014. A woman named Lenora Vane died in there. Same kind of strange behavior. Locked in, writing on the walls. That case was ruled a suicide. So how the hell did Mara get in? Her keyring had 3 keys. One was for 3A, one for her car, and a third, old bronze, didn't match anything current. Until we tested it. It opened 3B. Clean. That's when Kyle got quiet. You think she picked the lock? No, I said. I think someone gave her that key. We pulled maintenance logs. 3B was sealed. No renters since the incident. No reports of it being reopened. Later that week, Mara came to in the hospital. I interviewed her lightly. She wasn't a suspect, just off. She said, "I was dreaming at first. Then I woke up and the candles were already lit. She was standing in the mirror, but not looking at me. I asked her who. She looked up, dead center. She didn't have a face. No substances in her system. No psych history. Blood work was clean. The doctor called it a dissociative fugue episode. Stress-induced. Maybe trauma. Thing is, she didn't remember the writing. Didn't remember getting cut. Didn't remember the key. A month later, she disappeared. Broke her lease. Moved out of town. Left no forwarding address. Kyle couldn't shake it. Started requesting day shifts. Eventually transferred to parks and rec security. Said the nights got too long. Me? I took it like I do most things. Quietly. But sometimes when I was parked alone, cruiser idling outside a closed gas station or an empty trailer, I'd think about her face or lack of, and that message. Don't look at her face. I still don't know what that means. I never saw Mara again. Never got closure on the key. The landlord won't talk about 3B. Last I heard, it's still sealed. Officially, unofficially, a neighbor says she still sees lights flicker in that window every now and then. Thinks it's squatters. I didn't tell her what I saw, or what I didn't. That's the thing about stories like this. There's no monster, no big scare, just someone alone in a room with a mind that gave up on her. Whether something came through the door or she brought it with her, I'll never know. All I do know is you can only stare at the edge for so long before something stares back. Some doors aren't locked to keep you out. They're locked to keep something in. Respect silence. Trust your instincts. And if something feels off, it probably is. Don't open the wrong door. I'd only been with Hawaii State Police in Hilo 4 months when it happened. March 22, 2016, Route 42, outside Kiau. I remember the call came in at 4:12 a.m., a 2-car collision, 1 confirmed fatal. My field sergeant, Kimo Reyes, and I rolled up within 15 minutes. There were already 2 ambulances on site and a tow crew standing around looking shaken. The scene wasn't hard to piece together. A green Civic had crossed over the center line going the wrong way, smashed into a silver minivan head-on. The front of both cars looked like crushed soda cans. One of the EMTs pointed to the driver of the van, a local woman in her mid-30s, pronounced dead on impact. Name was Eliza Mahalona. 3 kids in the back, all alive. Mostly shaken, not seriously hurt. The other driver, white male, early 40s, no ID on him, just a rental key fob in his jeans. He didn't survive either. I remember crouching near the Civic looking for anything. Open bottles, meds, a phone. Nothing. What stuck with me, even then, was how calm he looked. Airbag torn open, windshield webbed with cracks, chest caved in. But his eyes were wide, like he saw something before it hit. Like maybe the crash wasn't the worst part of his night. We identified him about an hour later at the ER. Name was Lucas Arnett, 40, from Oahu. No priors, no DUI record, not even a speeding ticket. The rental was traced back to a place near Hilo Airport. He'd picked it up 2 days earlier. No travel companion listed. Thing is, his odometer told a different story. 600 miles driven in 48 hours. That's a lot for this island. While we were still trying to get a hold of his next of kin, one of the detectives pulled us aside. Said something about the mileage didn't sit right. The kids in the minivan were stable, so Reyes and I headed to the address listed on Arnett's rental paperwork, a guest house tucked behind a lava rock wall down near Puna. The manager met us at the front desk with eyes like he hadn't slept in a week. He said Lucas checked in alone, paid cash for 3 nights, didn't request towels or cleaning. Never once asked about Wi-Fi. Weird, but not illegal. We unlocked the room together. First thing I noticed was how cold it was inside. AC on full blast even though the windows were open. The suitcase was still zipped, but something was off. On the nightstand was a baby monitor. Old, analog. The kind with the red light that glows even when nothing's playing. It was on, just static. There was no crib in the room, no signs of a baby. But when we flipped the bedspread back, something sharp hit my nose. Not rot exactly, more like iron and mildew. In the corner of the mini fridge, Reyes found a bundle wrapped in a maroon baby blanket. At first we thought maybe it was an animal. Then we saw the shoulder. Pale skin. A woman. Her ID was still in her purse. Claire Arnett. His wife. Dead. For a while, by the look of it. Underneath her body was a folded onesie, a faded Polaroid tucked into the fabric. It showed a baby girl. Could have been a few months old, wrapped in the same maroon blanket. She wasn't smiling. We called it in. The whole property was sealed off. They brought in forensics. I stayed out by the parking lot while they did the heavy work. It felt wrong to go back in. Later that day, I got a copy of the note they found on the desk, written in shaky pen. She never screams unless I'm not watching. I had to quiet her. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just kept thinking, if Claire had been dead for over a week, who was Lucas driving around with in that Civic? We never found the baby. Anna. That was her name. We traced everything. Flights, ferry logs, highway cams. No footage showed a child with him. And yet, the car seat was there. The blanket had been in the fridge. The baby monitor was live. We interviewed neighbors from Oahu. One woman said she hadn't seen Claire in weeks. Another mentioned Lucas had stopped talking altogether. Went strange after she started keeping the baby home all the time, she said. The story pieced itself together like wet newspaper. Lucas lost his job, withdrew from friends, stopped answering family, then disappeared with his wife and daughter. By the time he got to Hilo, something had already broken inside him. And what I can't let go of is this. 600 miles on an island that's barely 90 across. It means he was driving in circles, for hours, for days, trying to keep her quiet, or maybe trying to hear her cry. Sometimes I think the crash was planned, like he'd been building toward it, not to escape, but to end something. That spot, mile marker 8. I still drive past it sometimes. I slow down, not because of the curve, but because I feel like I'm supposed to. Like someone left something there still unfinished. Reyes once asked me if I thought the baby had ever been real. I said, yeah, I think she was, but I don't think she was with him in the end. Not physically anyway. There's a kind of loneliness that wraps itself around you so tight it feels like another person. Maybe that's who he was talking to on those drives. Maybe that's who he was watching with that monitor. Not all ghosts are dead. Some are memories we never let go of, voices that never left the passenger seat. When someone starts driving in circles, you better hope they find a way out before it's too late. Don't ignore the silence. It's usually telling you something. There's a stillness in certain forests that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like something is listening. I used to think it was just the wind, or maybe wildlife lying low. But that summer in 2019, I learned the truth. Some woods carry old debts, and some people carry them like religion. I wasn't looking for anything dramatic that day. It was August 14th, my day off, and I headed out toward Ironclad Lake with my dog, Bishop. That trail had always been my place. Long stretches of pine shadow and rock scrambles that kept the brain busy. I'd spent years working the southern end of Clay County, and this part was usually so quiet, it felt sacred. The narcotics bust from 3 years earlier had mostly faded from my mind. We lost a suspect during a chase. Wade Coulter, truck flipped into a creek bed, high on something we never fully tested. Armed, fleeing. I was behind the wheel that night. Everyone cleared me. But I knew he had family around, and I knew grief turns men into ghosts, and ghosts into something worse. Bishop caught a scent about 2 miles in. He bolted off trail like he'd spotted a deer. I followed, yelling for him. That's when I felt the zap. High voltage, right between the shoulder blades. I went down hard, woke up zip-tied, mouth taped, head pounding. Everything smelled like gasoline, rust, and sweat. The shed was rough, boards nailed together, no windows, roof patched with tarp. I knew I was in deep country, and no one was coming anytime soon. They didn't hide their voices much. One had a younger man's bite, the other older, raspier, deliberate. The young one kept calling me soldier girl, said it like a slur. The older one didn't talk as much, but when he did, it was specific. They knew my badge number, my old Marine unit. They knew my patrol route. Even the name of the kid I arrested behind the high school for slinging pills. That first night, they didn't hit me. They didn't need to. They played footage, my body cam from the Coulter incident, news clips, county press conferences. They read out every arrest report I'd written in that part of the woods like scripture. "You remember Wade screaming when that truck flipped?" the younger one asked, pacing in front of me. "Begging? You just stood there." I wanted to tell him it wasn't true, that I'd tried to pull the door open but the fire was already under the dash, that I'd radioed for help, that I still heard the metal buckling in my sleep sometimes. But I couldn't speak. The tape on my mouth was tight, and every breath felt like it scraped. They weren't after truth. They were after story, one they could own. Day 2, the humiliation started. They made me name every person I'd ever arrested on Pine Barrens Trail. Told me to describe what they looked like, how scared they were. Then they made me listen to Wade's brothers yelling at his funeral on a radio recording someone had pulled off a scanner. I figured by then it wasn't random. These men knew Wade, knew him like family does. What rattled me most was how cold they were about it. They weren't high, they weren't frantic, they were careful, disciplined. This had been planned for a long time. They'd waited, studied, waited some more. The younger one especially had something burning in him. He didn't care about the past. He cared about pain. He stared at me like I was a locked door he was gonna bust open. That night, they said they were gonna bury me in the woods with Wade's picture in my hand. Said they wanted me to be found someday just like he had been. An even trade, the younger one said, crouching near me with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. You get the same dirt, just slower. I believed him, and for the first time in years I thought I was going to die. What saved me was Bishop, my dog. Somehow he'd gotten away. They must have thought they'd hit him hard enough to kill him, but Bishop was tougher than they figured. While I was locked in that shed, barely able to move, Bishop made it 5 miles north, bleeding from a gash on his side and scratched at the base of the old fire tower until a couple of hikers found him. One recognized him from the station, called it in. Captain Joel Brewer wasn't even on shift that day, but when he heard my cruiser hadn't moved in over 48 hours, he acted fast. Brewer doesn't play politics, he plays instinct. They pulled together a crew, 2 off-duty deputies, a handful of local veterans, a fire rescue guy who owed Brewer a favor. They worked the woods hard. They found me on day 3, just after noon. One of the men had left with a shovel. The other had stayed behind, maybe to finish it quietly. Brewer got there first. Shots were fired. Only one of those men made it out alive, and not far. I remember the sound of boots on wood, the door crashing open, someone yelling my name. I'd swallowed part of the duct tape trying to scream. My wrists were raw, my throat was bloodied, but I was breathing. The younger one, Wade's brother, had changed his name, moved to Georgia, built a new life with a fake one underneath it. He'd been planning this since the day of the funeral. They found his hideout, his maps, even surveillance photos of me in my backyard. He'd been watching for months. I was out for 6 months on medical and psych leave. I worked my way back, slow. Started riding patrol with a partner again. But I don't hike alone anymore. Not even with Bishop. It's not the woods I don't trust. It's memory. Grief. Some men don't let go of what the world owes them. They build shrines to it, and they'll drag you into it if you're not careful. Justice wears a badge, but revenge wears patience. Know the difference. You can follow the law to the letter and still walk right into someone else's reckoning. And sometimes being right isn't enough to keep you safe. You spend enough years wearing a badge in a small southern county. You start thinking you've seen the worst of people, what they'll do out of desperation or pride or just plain stupidity. You also start lying to yourself, like I did, telling yourself you're the steady one, the calm in the chaos, until the night comes when all that steadiness doesn't stop a kid from bleeding out on a patch of gravel you've driven 100 times before. It was October, golden hour rolling down Highway 12 like firelight. That stretch always reminded me of something fading. Fields thinning out, gas stations with busted ice machines, trailers leaning just a little too hard to one side. I was riding patrol with Sean Booker, my rookie partner fresh from the academy. Eyes still too bright, voice still too polite. I liked him, thought maybe I could teach him how to read the road right. Dispatch crackled in with a BOLO, metallic blue Oldsmobile swerving near Trinity Bend. Possible DUI. We spotted it easy enough, pulled it over without calling backup. No reason to. I'd written that car up before. Belonged to Marcus Delroy, kid barely out of college, fixed up lawnmowers and dirt bikes in his front yard. Always said yes, sir, no, sir. When I walked up, Marcus looked like a deer that had wandered into traffic, hands trembling, voice soft. He passed over his license with both hands like it might bite him. No smell of alcohol. But those pupils? Wide as dimes. I asked if he'd been using anything, and he shook his head too fast. Something was off, but not criminal. Just scared. Sean stood on the passenger side watching. I ran the license, clean. No warrants. When I came back, I told Marcus we'd probably just give him a warning. Told him to relax, maybe grab some water. I asked if he had anything in the vehicle we should know about. That's when it went wrong. He hesitated, glanced at the glove box, then reached toward it. Slow, then sudden. I said, "Easy now, son. Just stay still." Then Sean shouted from the other side, "Gun!" And everything went to hell. There's a sound I can't get out of my head. Not the gunshot, though I hear that too, but the sound Marcus made right before. A small breath, like he was trying to speak, trying to explain. But the shot came first. One bullet, straight to the chest. Marcus stumbled out of the car, fell to the pavement, eyes wide, blood blooming fast through his shirt. Sean stood frozen, gun still up. I moved first, tried compressions, shouted for medics, called it in with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking. The glove box was open now. Inside was a leather-bound Bible and a crumpled traffic citation, the one I gave him last spring. That's all. When EMS rolled up, Marcus was gone. Sean stood 5 feet away, mumbling. I thought he had something. I told him to put the gun down. I told him to sit in the cruiser. He didn't argue. I've worked this county 15 years. I've pulled men out of meth houses. I've held a shotgun to a man's chest while his baby screamed in the background. But I've never felt the air leave a kid's lungs while I held his shirt together. Not until then. The internal affairs team moved fast. Body cam footage didn't lie. Marcus didn't have a weapon. He didn't lunge. His only crime was moving too quick while nervous, and trusting that we'd read it the right way. Sean was put on leave pending review. Protesters started showing up 2 days later. Not in waves, just small groups. Neighbors, students, Marcus's church pastor. They stood with signs outside the courthouse. No shouting, just presence. The kind that weighs more than noise. One of the signs read, "Not everyone who shakes is guilty." I stood behind the tinted glass of the office and stared at it longer than I meant to. A few nights later, Marcus's mother asked to speak with me. She didn't scream. She didn't spit blame. She just handed me a manila envelope. Inside was Marcus's prescription, lorazepam, diagnosed panic disorder. The pupils, side effect, the shaking, his every day. I couldn't meet her eyes after that. I just nodded. I couldn't say sorry, not because I didn't mean it, but because I knew it wouldn't help. I kept the badge for a while, wore it out of habit more than pride. People looked at me different. Some offered sympathy. Others just didn't look at all. I started going to a counselor. Told her I didn't need fixing, just understanding. She didn't try to diagnose me, just listened. Sometimes that's the only thing keeping you from sinking. Someone sitting quiet on the other side of a desk. Eventually, I started volunteering at the youth garage near the old mill. Kids came in with busted carburetors and empty tanks. I'd help where I could. Mostly, I just handed them tools and let them figure things out. Quiet work, no uniform, no spotlight. Some nights I still hear Booker whispering it. I thought he had something, and some part of me wants to scream back, he didn't. But most nights, I just sit still, let it echo, let it remind me what I missed. Not every threat looks like one, and not every flinch means danger. Sometimes, fear wears a human face, one you should have known better than to misread. In law enforcement, split-second decisions can kill, and sometimes the true justice is learning how to live with that, knowing next time you might have to see the boy, not the motion. There's something about winter mornings that makes the world feel paused, like everything's holding its breath. February 3rd was one of those mornings. Cold, quiet, fog hanging low over the fields like wet cotton. I'd rerouted off my usual patrol to check an old fire road near Miller. Ethan Graves had been missing for 48 hours, the kind of case that usually ends in a cold file or a college parking lot. But his mother had called again, her voice cracked from crying. His phone pinged near Miller Road. He's scared of the dark. "Carla, please." I shouldn't have even picked up. Technically, I wasn't assigned, but I knew her. I remembered Ethan as a lanky kid from a trespassing call 2 years back, apologetic, bright, carrying a dog-eared copy of Carl Sagan in his hoodie pocket. He didn't feel like a runaway, so I went. The road narrowed fast. One lane, muddy shoulder, no signs, no tracks, just woods and fog. About half a mile in, I saw the Corolla, parked sideways, lights off, exhaust cold. I stepped out, boots crunching over frost. The second I opened the door, I smelled it, gunpowder, oil, and something worse. Ethan was in the driver's seat, head slumped against the pillar. One wound, right temple, no exit, but his hands were still warm. His phone lay in the cup holder, screen still lit. A voice memo had been recorded just after 5 a.m. I played it. "Mom, I didn't mean to find it." That's when I knew this wasn't going to be routine. After the coroner took the body and I filed initial reports, I went back to the car. Something about it felt off, too clean. No signs of panic, no scribbles, no drugs. Then I found the flyer, tucked behind the passenger visor. Aged paper, torn corner, bold type, black vine assembly. Below it, a red symbol that looked hand-stamped. Then coordinates and a time, 2 a.m., January 30th. No website, no contact info, just a place in the woods. I ran the coordinates through the county GIS maps. They matched a site listed as condemned after a 1987 lightning fire, an old ranger station in George Washington National Forest. Nothing there now, just charred beams and rumor. When I got home, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that note, the voice memo. I didn't mean to find it. He hadn't meant to go looking, but something drew him out there anyway. 3 days later, I sat with his mom while she boxed up his things. His room was neat but strange. His laptop had been torched, ashes in the fire pit out back, books removed, drawers emptied. But I found something in his closet, a stack of handwritten notes, fragmented thoughts, paranoia. They hum when I sleep. Trees moved again. Marked, but not claimed. Whatever he saw, or thought he saw, had followed him back. One notebook had a rough sketch of the flyer symbol. Another page had the phrase, "She said they gather beneath root and ash." I stopped reading. I made calls. Tried to find who owned the land now. Hit walls fast. The property had been bought 4 years ago by a Delaware LLC. Paper trail cold, then overseas. The kind of redirection you don't often see in rural land purchases. And no one I called, Local forestry, state patrol, even bureau liaisons wanted to touch it. Some flat out told me not to waste time. One guy, former fire crew, hung up when I mentioned the name, just said, "That place burned for a reason." I know what suicide cases look like. I've seen enough. They're messy, private, angry, or numb. But this? Ethan didn't go there to die. He went there to run from whatever he found. He deleted his online life, burned his laptop, left no note, only that memo. I didn't mean to find it. You don't say that if you're giving up. You say that when you saw something you were never supposed to see, something that scared you down to your bones. He didn't sound suicidal. He sounded terrified. I wanted to go out there, hike the coordinates myself, but something in my gut said no, not alone, maybe not ever. There are places in this world that don't want to be found. The report says suicide, open and shut, but it still keeps me up at night. I keep that flyer locked in my bottom drawer. Don't know why. Just can't throw it away. I look at it sometimes when my shift ends and the station is quiet. Red ink faded, paper curled at the corners. A piece of something wrong that still echoes like a breath in the dark. I've stopped asking questions about that land, about what Ethan saw. But I'll never forget the sound of his voice, soft and shaking, caught between fear and apology. "Mom, I didn't mean to find it. Some truths don't set you free. They only show you how deep the dark goes. Curiosity can light the match, but it's the silence afterward that tells you what was never meant to be known." I left the city hoping for silence. After my tour, PTSD left me half listening to every shout, every slam, every siren. I needed quiet that didn't speak. Montrose County was perfect. A grid of gravel roads, endless sky, and just a handful of calls a day. Friday, July 2nd, 2021, should have been another calm one. Instead, I got dispatched to Avery Hill Lane, a screaming and banging disturbance at the Morton house. I dragged my boots through gravel, stomach tight with that old something's wrong feeling. Backup, Deputy Becca Langley, was beside me. Sharp, professional. I told her quietly I wasn't sure I was ready for this. She nodded. We both were. Avery Hill is quiet country. Wide yards, one mailbox every mile, no streetlights, just horizon. The Morton place was sandstone faced with a big porch. No cars. Door wide open when we knocked. No response. I noticed the silence before I saw her. Claire Morton answered barefoot, in a sundress with a towel in hand. She smiled like she was at a barbecue. But there was a bruise blooming red-purple around her cheekbone. Blood trickled down her bottom lip. She said she dropped a mirror. I caught Becca's look. She asked about her husband. Claire said, "He's just napping upstairs." Her tone was flat, and that's what got me. I stepped upstairs, quiet as death. No footsteps, no TV, no muffled voices. The hallway stretched out like a burial. I thought I heard a creak. Bathroom door. I froze as I turned the knob. Darren Morton was in the tub, cold water drowned around him. One wound through the jaw, a shotgun in his lap, blood pooling like spilled paint. The towel folded neatly on the toilet lid looked like an altar gift. No signs of fight, nothing toppled, just him and the weapon, empty water and blood. That was when everything rushed back. Scenes from the city, hostage calls, people frozen mid-scream. I was back in the chaos but alone. Downstairs, Claire stood quietly in the kitchen, coffee steaming beside her. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. When I asked if she'd called for help, she shook her head. "I dropped a mirror," she repeated, voice calm. Then she looked up and said, "He choked me last week. Slapped me in front of his brother at Christmas." Her eyes didn't gleam. She looked exhausted. Becca tried to comfort her. Claire said, "I didn't call before because I wanted someone to believe I wasn't weak. Today, he said something so cruel it hollowed out the house. I couldn't do another tomorrow. She paused, then added, I didn't plan it, but I had a shell loaded for a week. Becca and I just stared. She poured us each coffee from the Keurig like she was offering peace. I watched Becca whisper something into her radio. Claire said, I did what I had to. She offered no resistance when we cuffed her. No tears, just a long, relieved exhale like she'd emptied herself after holding a storm inside. The news hit small town and national radar fast. Was she a cold-blooded killer or a battered woman cornered by guilt and bruises? Social media lit up with mothers telling stories, door slamming, endless threats, apologies for the same bruised lip. County gossip tied itself in knots. Some women said Claire did the only thing that saved her. Others said no, it's never okay to take a life. I listened, quiet. I've seen both sides. DA put her on house arrest. Defense built the battered woman case, history of spousal abuse, witnesses from last Christmas. The prosecutor offered a deal, reduced charge, time served, protection orders. Claire took it. Montrose watched her walk free to house arrest. Justice, but messy, slow kind. I watched her go past my squad car. No cameras, no escorts, just Becca and myself, 2 deputies who'd carried the worst quiet inside us. Weeks later, I stopped by the garage sale hosted by Claire's friends. They were raising money for counseling and emergency shelter. I handed a $20 bill in a coffee sleeve. Silent support. Claire looked up at me and offered a nod. No words, just understanding. Every night since, I sleep better, but I still have PTSD nights. Soft, breathy gasps, the sound of falling glass, someone banging in a quiet house. Then I remember Claire's voice, calm, resolute. She emptied the storm, but didn't speak the thunder. She exhaled the weight, not the result. Justice isn't always loud. It can come wrapped in a whisper, a bruise, a final choice to stop the pain. Sometimes the right call is the one that echoes in silence, and it's never easy, but it matters. They say evil has a face, but sometimes it's just a shadow standing too still. I've been a deputy in Comanche County for most of my adult life. Not much happens around Coldwater, drunk calls, stray cattle, the occasional teenager flipping a four-wheeler. It's a quiet town, the kind where the church bell still rings on Sundays and folks leave their keys in their trucks at night. But all it takes is one moment to turn your world sideways. It was a Friday, late spring, just before 6. I remember because the air felt strange, the kind of heavy Kansas overcast that rolls in without thunder but still manages to crawl under your shirt. I was just wrapping up paperwork when the call came in. Old man Brenner, who owns 100 acres off Blakely Farm Road, said there was a man standing at the edge of his wheat field. Said he'd been there for nearly 3 hours, just watching the farmhouse not moving. Probably some drifter, I said to Sam, my partner. We headed out there expecting someone off their meds or maybe strung out. When we pulled up, the guy was still there. He didn't turn when we parked or when we got out, just stood with his back toward us, half hidden in the wheat. Tall, wearing a long black coat and this wide-brimmed hat like something out of a damn ghost story. He was barefoot. I'll never forget that. Bare feet in May, standing in wheat like the earth owned him. I called out, "Sir, this is private property. I need to see your hands." No movement. Again, firmer. Nothing. I approached slow, Sam circling left. My hand rested on my holster more out of instinct than fear. The man didn't move until I was maybe 10 feet away. Then, fast as a switchblade, he turned and lunged. He was on me before I could react. I slipped in the soft dirt. Pain hit my side sharp, then again in my shoulder. I felt the warmth before I saw the blood. He leaned in close, his breath cold against my ear. "One more for the count," he whispered. "You're the 7th. Then he vanished, straight into the wheat like it swallowed him whole. Sam fired once, missed. The guy was already gone. I was bleeding bad. Couldn't stand, couldn't breathe. Sam knelt beside me, radioing for backup. shouting something I couldn't hear over the ringing in my ears. My shirt was soaked. Every breath stabbed through me like glass. They got me to the hospital in cold water, then airlifted me to Wichita. Stitches, blood transfusions, a collapsed lung. The doctors told me I was lucky. They say that a lot. Lucky, like I'd won a raffle and not nearly died on a dirt road with a stranger's knife in my ribs. But that wasn't the worst part. After the surgery, a nurse came in quiet. She asked if I wanted to see something before the detectives arrived. I nodded. She lifted the edge of my bandages. Just below my vest, carved shallow into the skin, was a number, 7. No one could explain it. Said the cuts were precise, not rage, not panic. It was deliberate. They started connecting the dots. 6 other unsolved attacks across western Kansas going back nearly a decade. All in or near old silos, empty fields, dusty towns with names only locals remember. Victims were always alone. All stabbings. No pattern beyond the setting and method. The suspect? Always vanished. No prints, no DNA. No witnesses ever got a clear look. They started calling him the Hatman of the Prairie. Some reporters tried making him into an urban legend, but I knew better. He wasn't a ghost. He was real. When I got out of the hospital, I tried to go back to work. Desk duty at first. Sam checked in often, but he looked at me different, like I'd touched something unclean. I stopped sleeping. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. every night, convinced I heard whispering. I couldn't patrol again, couldn't step into a field without feeling eyes on me. So I transferred. Logistics, mostly office work now. Out of sight, off the radar, but even now, years later, I sometimes hear his voice in the wind, just below the rustling wheat. Not what he said, how he said it, like he wasn't done. The strangest part wasn't the stabbing. It wasn't even the number on my skin. It was what didn't happen afterward. There were no footprints past where he'd stood, none leading in or out. The wheat was undisturbed, like he'd sunk straight into the ground. The drones and dogs came up empty. It was like chasing smoke. Local farmers clammed up. Old-timers started telling stories about a man who walked the fields at dusk. A figure in black who appeared just before storms. A couple even claimed to have seen him years before but never reported it. They thought he was a scarecrow until he turned. It didn't feel like a serial killer in the traditional sense. There was no ransom, no message, no demand. Just violence and silence. I started digging when I should have been resting. Obsessing. I found a pattern. Each of the 6 previous victims had one thing in common. They were all alone when it happened, and each attack occurred near a grain silo or wheat field. One woman, a teacher from Garden City, survived just long enough to whisper something to paramedics. He counted me. That sent chills up my spine. I looked at old reports. They were sloppy. Disconnected counties, different jurisdictions. No one saw the connections, or maybe they didn't want to. But I did. And when I went back through my own files, I found something else. 2 years before my attack, I'd pulled over a man wearing a long black coat. He'd been walking along Route 183 near a silo. I didn't arrest him, just gave him a ride to town. He never said a word, just smiled. I remembered thinking, who wears a coat in June? I never reported it because it didn't seem worth logging. That mistake still haunts me. I couldn't let it go. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't live like I was just waiting for him to finish whatever he'd started. So I went back. Not officially. I took vacation time, lied to my supervisor, and drove out to Blakely Farm Road. The wheat had been harvested, the fields brown and lifeless now. The old grain silo nearby was still abandoned, rusted shut. But I parked and walked. I stood at the same spot where he'd attacked me. My heart pounded, palms sweaty. But I had to do it. And then I saw it. Something metal glinting near the silo's edge. I walked over slowly and picked it up. A belt buckle. Rusted, with the letter H scratched into it. It meant nothing at first. But when I ran it through an old property database, I found the name Harold Finch. A man who'd owned land near there in the 1980s. He went missing in 1993, declared dead. No body ever found. His barn and house had burned down in a mysterious fire. It was a dead end, or maybe a buried beginning. If he was the man I met, he'd have to be in his 70s by now. But the man who stabbed me, mid-40s maybe, strong, fast. So either Finch wasn't the Hatman, or there's more than one. I left Kansas in the spring of 2022, took a job in Colorado, bought a dog, settled in a quiet town where wheat doesn't grow and silos are rare. But I still lock my doors, still keep the lights on at night, still jump when I hear the wind shift. A few months ago, I got a letter, no return address, just a single card inside. Plain white. On it, hand-drawn in red ink, the number 8. No words. Just that. I reported it. The local sheriff was polite, concerned even. Promised to check cameras. Nothing came of it. But I knew what it meant. He's still out there. Or they are. I never heard of another attack. Not officially. But sometimes late at night I check obscure forums, talk to truckers and travelers. A few whisper about the barefoot man seen on rural roads. Some joke, some don't. All I know is this: he didn't want to kill me that day. Not yet. He wanted to mark me. And maybe one day when the wind changes and the wheat grows tall again, he'll come back to finish counting. Some evils aren't loud or monstrous. They're patient. They hide in plain sight, counting quietly, watching those who've stopped watching for them. Don't ignore the small warnings. Don't assume silence means safety. And never turn your back on something just because the world tells you it isn't real. Sometimes, shadows aren't chasing you. They're waiting for you to stop running. New Year's night 2023, I was on shift. The kind of shift you pray stays boring. Cold had settled over Delta County like glass. Roads were slick. Black ice in the shadows, air sharp enough to make your teeth ache. Most folks were already home, bellies full and heads heavy. I was nursing gas station coffee and listening to the radio crackle when dispatch buzzed in. Single vehicle crash. Cottonwood Ravine, just off Route 385 by Gunnison Bluffs. A local called it in. Said he saw a glint of metal when he pulled off to stretch his legs. No fire. No movement. I was only 15 minutes out. When I rolled up, my headlights caught the silhouette of a black sedan crushed nose first into a tree about 30 feet down. No skid marks, no shattered glass on the asphalt. Looked more like someone set it there than lost control. I radioed it in and started the descent on foot. The air was still, no wind, just that brittle cold that presses into your skin like a second layer. The car was in rough shape. Airbags out, windshield webbed in 100 frozen cracks. I expected the worst. But inside, there she was, slumped over the wheel, dark hair tangled around her face. Young, 20s maybe, blood trailing from behind her ear. Not gushing, but steady. She was buckled in, which was strange. Most crash victims aren't slumped forward if the belt holds. And this girl didn't look tossed around. No bruising on the face, no dashboard impact. I opened the door. Her skin was ice cold, but she had a pulse. Shallow, fragile. Then I saw it. Just behind her left ear, hidden in the hairline. Small, round wound. Clean, surgical. I've seen bullet entries before. This wasn't road trauma. She hadn't crashed. She'd been left. And whoever did it? They wanted her found, but not too soon. EMTs arrived within minutes, voices clipped from the cold. They got her stabilized, wrapped, and wheeled up fast. She hadn't stirred once. A ghost of a pulse, faint and mechanical on the monitor. They said the wound was strange, deep, but no exit. No lodged round. Just empty. I stayed back, scanned the area with my flashlight. No tire tracks besides mine and the EMTs. No footprints around the vehicle. No blood trail beyond her seat. just silence and snow. I looked through the car. No purse, no ID, nothing that told me who she was. Her clothes weren't torn, just muddy from the impact. But the back seat held a single item, a small black notebook. Water damaged, pages warped. I slid it into an evidence bag and flipped through it under the dome light. Gas stations, mile markers, lists of rest stops from Utah to Colorado, scrawled notes, some barely legible. One line stood out: "Keep driving. If I sleep, he catches up." That hit me like a punch to the gut. She hadn't been sightseeing, she was running. The hospital kept her sedated, no ID on file. She was listed as Jane Doe, mid-20s, unresponsive, monitored, alive, barely. Around 4:30 a.m., a man showed up in the ER lobby, said he was her fiancé. He asked to see her, claimed her name was Meredith. But when the nurse asked for her middle name or insurance info, he hesitated, couldn't name any family. When I approached and identified myself, he left quietly. Too quiet. Security pulled footage. He'd tailed the ambulance. Not right behind, but close. Just enough to stay in range. When we reviewed the cameras from Gunnison Bluffs, his car had been parked a quarter-mile down the road, hidden behind brush. He hadn't found her. He'd followed her. And now, she was unconscious with no memory, and he had no reason to stick around, which meant he hadn't come to help. He came to see if she was dead. I didn't sleep after that. Couldn't. The whole thing felt wrong in a way that doesn't let go. I ran her prints. Nothing. No missing persons matched. No matches in Utah, Nevada, or Colorado. Even ran them through the feds clean. She woke 11 days later. I was there when she opened her eyes. At first, she panicked. Tubes, lights, the whole sterile fog of the ICU. I introduced myself, told her where she was, asked if she remembered what happened. She blinked slowly and said, "No, I don't know where I was going." She didn't know her name, or so she said. Didn't remember the notebook. Claimed the last thing she could recall was a motel, maybe, sometime around mid-December. No family came forward. No old friends called in. It was like she'd dropped out of the sky. But I kept thinking about that line. If I sleep, he catches up. I dug into the notebook again. The addresses led to dusty little stops. Gas stations along back highways, some barely still operating. I drove out to a few. One clerk remembered her. "Yeah, she came in late. Looked rough. Bought coffee. Didn't talk." Another said, "She kept checking over her shoulder." I thought she was on something. But no one remembered her car. No one saw her with anyone. And that made it worse. Because someone was with her. He followed her to that cliff. He didn't push her off. He didn't leave her to die. He sat her in the seat, buckled her in, and walked away. It wasn't a murder. It was a warning. Weeks passed. She was released under a protective alias. The state tried to get her into counseling, support programs, anything. But she kept her distance. Said she just needed time. I watched her walk out of the hospital, a state-issued coat and borrowed sneakers on her feet, face pale against the sky. She never contacted me again, but I kept digging. One night I got a message, anonymous, no sender ID, just a photo. It was grainy, from a gas station camera. Her car parked beside another. A man in a green parka, hat pulled low. His face obscured, but the timestamp matched one of the notebook entries. I couldn't trace the number. Burner. I called in favors. Searched arrest logs from Utah, Nevada, Arizona. I found nothing. He didn't exist on paper, but someone out there was helping her stay hidden. Or maybe helping her keep moving. The wound behind her ear never scarred right. The surgeon told me it was precise. Too clean for an accident, but somehow without debris. Like a hole made to scare, not kill. A mark, or maybe a message. I still drive that stretch of highway sometimes, when I'm restless. I check the overlook. I scan the trees. But the snow always covers the trail. Somewhere out there, she's still running. And whoever she ran from, he might not need to follow anymore. He might already know where she's going. A year passed. Another New Year's. Quieter this time. I thought of her when the clock struck midnight. Wondered if she was somewhere warm. Wondered if she remembered me. Then I got a postcard. No return address, no note. Just a photo on the front. A desolate stretch of highway in Arizona. Cracked pavement, endless sky. On the back, in tiny handwriting, "The road ends when I stop." I reported it, logged it. But deep down, I knew it wasn't a threat. It was a goodbye, or a promise. I've seen many things that don't make sense. People who vanish without reason. Wounds that don't bleed right. Smiles that hide something sharp. But her? She wasn't running from a person. She was running from a story she couldn't explain. Maybe he was real. Maybe he wasn't. But what scared her most wasn't being caught. It was being believed. I still carry that notebook in my locker. Water-stained, smudged. A map of fear. A breadcrumb trail across empty places. And sometimes I wonder, how many more out there are running too? Not all who run are hiding. Some are surviving. And sometimes, the greatest danger isn't what's behind you, but what no one believes could be real. Trust your instincts. And if someone says they're scared, listen, because monsters don't always wear masks. Sometimes they walk behind you, smiling. New Year's 2022. I'd just cracked open a cheap beer standing by a fire pit in Ellie's backyard, watching my breath hang like fog. We'd strung some Christmas lights between the trees. It was quiet, peaceful, until the pager snapped to life on my hip. Rescue 4, single vehicle contact, no visible damage, unresponsive occupant. Location pins at Old Ranger Post Turnout off County 216. I didn't hesitate. Didn't really need to. The others watched me grab my coat and keys without a word. They knew. That stretch, locals call it the drop. It's a narrow turnout with a view straight down into the gulch. Beautiful in summer, desolate in winter. Roads curve hard there and there's no guardrail. If you miss the break, you go flying. By the time I rolled up, snow was just starting to spit again. My headlights cut through the sleet and there it was. A black Kia Forte, engine idling, door cracked just an inch. Interior light glowed faint and flickering. I stepped closer, boots crunching ice. She was in the driver's seat. A woman, maybe 30, head down, long dark hair covering her face like a curtain. One hand dangled off the wheel. She looked like she'd fallen asleep, but blood doesn't lie. And it was there, soaked into her temple, drying along her collar. No shattered glass, just a neat, dark hole. Close range, execution style, gunshot, but no gun. I backed off, heart thudding harder than I wanted to admit. Then I saw the car seat in the back, empty, secured tight, like someone still expected to use it. Beside it, a stuffed rabbit, soft pink, stained in places, and a folded baby blanket. That's when everything changed. This wasn't just a suicide. Something, or someone, was missing, and I had the terrible feeling she died protecting it. I radioed it in fast, gave coordinates, and told dispatch we had a confirmed fatality with suspicious conditions. Sheriff Ray was 15 minutes out. That left me alone with her. The wind was sharp, sneaking into every seam of my coat. But the inside of that car felt colder. I didn't touch her. You learn not to when something's off like that. But I looked. No powder burns, no residue, just clean execution. Temple in, no exit. That's when I opened the glove box and saw the folded birth certificate. Baby girl, born 6 months ago in Vermont. Mother's name, Leah. No last name listed and nothing matching any state ID records. It felt fake, or made to look real. The VIN came back unregistered. Plates were phony, obvious even to me. I wasn't a cop, but I'd seen enough junkers to spot a ghost car. Still, what stuck with me wasn't the car. It was the scratch marks, driver's side right by the door handle, deep ones, like someone had clawed or jammed something in fast, trying to get her out, or in. But there were no footprints, no drag marks, just wind and that soft, drifting sleet. It was like someone had come and gone with no weight at all. Sheriff pulled up not long after, looked, nodded, muttered, "Suicide," even before I finished giving him the details. I mentioned the missing gun, the blood pattern, the car seat. He didn't care, or maybe he just didn't want to. Rural law enforcement runs on certainty, not speculation. A messy suicide is easier to file than a missing infant and a ghost mother with no history. But I couldn't shake it. The blanket was still warm. That meant the child hadn't been gone long. And somebody, maybe her, maybe someone else, had made damn sure that baby left the car alive. The question was, where did they take her? And who did they run from? After that night, I couldn't sleep right. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that rabbit on the seat, ears flopped sideways, little bead eyes staring, not scared, just waiting. The official report came out 3 days later. Suicide, no signs of foul play, case closed. But I knew better. So did Ellie. She found me sitting in the garage with the heater off, staring at that birth certificate like it might change on its own. "You think someone else was there?" she asked. "I know it." I started running the plates and the car VIN through private salvage lists. Nothing came up. Not stolen, not junked, not owned. Then I called a friend who worked near the Vermont border, asked if any hospitals had records of that baby. The certificate wasn't in their system, which meant it was either forged or someone had it scrubbed. Why go through that trouble if you're not hiding from someone? I drove that stretch near the ranger post every weekend after that, stopped at the turnout, checked the trees. Sometimes I left flowers. Sometimes I just stood there trying to picture it. The moment she sat down, started the car, and waited. If she was running, she'd picked the end of the road to stop. But the child? She was gone before that decision was made. One Saturday in April, I found a new teddy bear on the turnout stone marker. Worn, tied with twine, no note, no prints, no tracks.